Welcome to the Wednesday stream. I hope everyone's having an awesome Wednesday morning. How's it going, Astro? Happy Wednesday from a very cool 9 degrees Celsius in grey London. Grey. All right. Folks, sorry about that delay. Hanather, 10 minutes ago, right off the bat, just kicking things off with a tier 1 subscription. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. I see you. Thank you so much. Sorry, folks, just trying to get myself situated here. We've also got to continue our journey through the IPCC report, which we have still about, I would say, almost 50 pages left. But first, let's get through this here. Let's take a look at this for a second. Let's just absorb that. Let's just absorb that for a second here. New York is giving the Buffalo Bills $850 million in taxpayer funds for new stadium. Nice, big subsidies, the biggest pro sports subsidies of all time. Period. Meanwhile, and this is just, I'm sure that this is just pure coincidence. New York announced an $800 million cut to family and children services. With the added caveat that the Buffalo Bills owner is worth what, 5.8 almost 6 billion with a B. Hey Heat, how's it going? This is the most American thing that could possibly happen. Why would we think that we would spend $800 million for children and family services when we can have a brand new stadium for sports ball? A brand new stadium. That's a good meme right there. Peak America over here. Hey Mayhem, how's it going? Howdy, howdy. Thank goodness. Thank goodness we're subsidizing a multi-billionaire to the tune of $850 million so that we can have another sports ball stadium. And it's just at the small price. It's just at the tiny, tiny price of children and family services. Man, do we have things so backwards here. I'm okay. Kids brought home a cold over the weekend. Mom down. Uh-oh. Uh-oh. My kid is sick too. Oof. Sorry to hear that, folks. As someone who has been on New York benefits, this is sad. This is freaking sad. There's tons of hoops to jump through just to get qualified. Really strict regulations and work requirements. Right, like, wait, first of all, hold on. If there are like strict work requirements to get like the basic necessity for children and family services, isn't that then the conclusion to isn't the natural conclusion then to be saying, well, clearly something isn't adding up. So people who are working, not people who are just sitting at the house, people who are working have to jump through so much hoops. That tells me that there's a problem with the wages. The wages can't pay for cost of living. The wages just aren't keeping up. We used to have to drive 3 hours just to get to a dentist that accepted our state insurance. Wow. Instead of just doing like the obvious thing, which is move towards a more universal healthcare system, we're having folks drive hours for a dentist appointment. Very good. Very good system. It's working, guys. It's working. That is just wild. Absolutely wild. Truly signs. I will say this though, when we moved to Vermont last year, New York State is way more ahead of the game as far as access and streamlining the process. So the process itself is good, but to get through said process, never mind the important social services. You guys New York got a new sports ball stadium. Congratulations, New York. Truly the things that matter here. A lot of New York's system is online now, so it's easier to get paperwork in and have access to your information. I guess in that aspect, that should be standardized, right? My question is why not the Bills owner, who is worth $5.8 billion, why doesn't he subsidize his own sports ball stadium? Just a thought. It should be, but it's not. The sad part about this, I bet most of that funding came from Western and upstate New York. Stefanik loves cutting social programs. Yikes. I also love, just as a side note, I also love how like conservatives often say that New York is some type of like left-wing bastion. That's a good meme. Yeah, they say about Canada too. Ah, yes, the bastion of the bastion of left-wing politics. Truly, I wonder if they're cutting the free school lunch program in the state. New York is very liberal in the cities, very right-wing in the country. Yeah, it's usually how that goes. They say it about Western Europe. No place is perfect. True. Very true. Is this really what what it's trying to sell me? What? I'm telling you, the ads on this channel. All right, here's something interesting. Internal White House records from the day of the attack on the U.S. Capitol that were turned over to the House Select Committee show a gap in President Trump's phone logs of 7 hours and 37 minutes, including the period when the building was being violently assaulted. According to documents obtained by CBS, CBS chief election and campaign correspondent Robert Costa and the Washington Post associate editor Bob Woodward. The lack of an official White House notation of any calls placed to or by Trump for 457 minutes from 11:17 to 6:54 on January 6 means there's no record of the calls made by Trump and as his supporters descended on the U.S. Capitol, battled overwhelmed police, and forcibly entered the building, prompting lawmakers and Vice President Mike Pence to flee for safety. The 11 pages of records, which consist of the president's official daily diary. What? The president has a daily diary? And the White House switchboard call log were turned over by the National Archives earlier this year to the House Select Committee investigating the January 6 attack. The records show that Trump was active on the phone for part of the day, documenting conversations that he had with at least 8 people in the morning and 11 people that evening. The gap also stands in stark contrast to the extensive public reporting about conversations he had with allies during the attack. Right. Wasn't there a bunch, like even some senators were, openly admitting that they contacted him directly, asking him to make a statement. So, where are those logs? The gap also stands in stark contrast to the extensive public reporting about conversations he had with allies during the attack. The chairman of the House Select Committee, Benny Thompson, called the reported gap in the logs concerning. Obviously, there's not a second in a day the president of the U.S. is not on record somewhere. He said the committee would see if we can piece it together. Having a record of what the president was doing on that day is absolutely vital to the work of the committee. Yeah, not only that, like, who he was talking to. Also, who and what was being said in those conversations are important to know. Thompson also said that the committee does not yet have any evidence that there was calls that the president had made or received during that time period, but if the capital of the U.S. is being overrun, somebody made some calls and we just had to find them. Right. I mean, this isn't like a mystery, right? This isn't a mystery. We've got GOP senators who admitted that they were talking to the president. There was several folks, tangential, that were making contact during that time. Is this about January 6th? Yep. The House panel is now investigating whether Trump communicated that day through back channels, phones of aides, or personal disposable phones known as burner phones, according to two people with the knowledge of the probe who, like others interviewed for this report, spoke on the condition of anonymity to discuss sensitive information. I kind of always hate that when the news does this. Like, bro, you're making you're making a public like statement already. You might as well come out, right? To discuss the sensitive information. The committee is now still scrutinizing whether it received the full log from that day. Yeah, that's a good question too. Records show that former White House chief strategist Stephen Bannon, who said on January 5th podcast that all hell is going to break loose tomorrow, spoke with Trump twice on January 6th. That's what I'm saying. There's people tangentially related that made phone calls that day. So where are they? Something fishy, that's for sure. Yeah, definitely. In a statement Monday night, Trump said, "I have no idea what a burner phone is. To the best of my knowledge, I have never even heard the term." Yeah, okay. That's a hard X to doubt. That's like a capital X to doubt, my friend. That is a capital X to doubt, for sure. That is a capital X to doubt. I mean, truly, this is like the same dude who says, "I've never heard of X person," and then there's like literally photographs of them together not that long ago. So, I'm sorry, my dude, but everything you have said is like 90% lies. So, every time this guy speaks like this, guaranteed, he's lying. Every single time. No idea. Yeah, okay, buddy. No idea. To the best of my knowledge, I have never even heard the term. Bro, are you kidding me? Yeah, okay. To lie so easily? Yeah, he's an expert con man. His whole entire, shtick is to con people, is to lie. That's his whole shtick. Yeah, to lie so easily. It's just in his nature. Like, that's literally his thing. Wow, they've never watched TV? Oh, no. This is just a flat out lie. You're telling me that you've never heard the term burner phone? Bro. You've never heard the term burner phone. Even though there's been multiple reports of you, even though there's multiple reports of you just sitting and watching TV for hours at a time, for hours on end, and not once, you've never heard the term burner phone. Okay, buddy. Wasn't this guy also very into law enforcement? How does he not know? I believe him. Howdy, Memo, for the record. I mean, the sad part about this is that people, like, unironically believe this guy. That's the true sad part about this whole thing, is that there are some people that will unironically buy that wholesale. How was birthday? What? Memo, was it your birthday yesterday? But former Trump National Security Advisor John Bolton said in an interview Tuesday after CBS News Washington Post reporting had been published, he recalls that Trump using the term burner phones in several discussions and that Trump was definitely aware of its meaning. Yeah, no kidding. Oh, I see. He was that I was born yesterday. Oh, okay, I see. Implying gullible. Gotcha. Okay, gotcha. Yeah, here we have a first-hand account. First-hand account directly contradicting what Trump says. Bolton said he and Trump have spoken about how people use burner phones to avoid having their calls scrutinized. Yeah, I mean, like, this guy knows. Come on. This is just a flat-out lie. A Trump spokesperson said that Trump had nothing to do with the records. Yeah, okay, so I'm gonna assume the opposite, and had assumed any and all of his phone calls were recorded and preserved. Really? That's interesting. Then where are the rest of these records? Almost, over his 7 hours and something? Very interesting. Like I said, folks, the more we find out about what really went down, the worse it gets. The worse it gets. we have missed last week's climate update, climate recap, I think. So we got to catch up on that one. Got to set that up. This is absolute nonsense. We got to talk about this. Microsoft, quote, "We need more carbon capture businesses to reverse climate change." Okay. No. Microsoft is trying to reverse its lifetime carbon emissions, the total amount of greenhouse gas it's responsible for sending into the atmosphere since its founding of 1975. To get there, it needs more companies it can pay to capture carbon dioxide from the air. What? Okay. That's the word from Lucas Joppa, Microsoft's chief environmental officer, speaking at the Techonomy Climate Conference. Carbon capture is expensive and can't operate at anything like the scale needed to pull a significant amount of carbon dioxide out of the air. That's the whole problem. You're investing so much time and effort into technology that is, at this point in time, A, not ready, B, expensive, and C, should be on the bottom of our to-do list, if it even makes it on our to-do list, as the most pressing thing that we can do that isn't that doesn't require technology that hasn't been developed yet. Like, for example, stopping current emissions. Because another major problem with just putting your investment or eggs in the carbon capture basket, so to speak, is that it kind of gives the illusion. It gives the illusion that we can continue to burn fossil fuels. It gives an excuse or the illusion that we can still coexist with the fossil fuel industry. We can still use fossil fuels. We'll just build carbon capture, which is expensive and has not been scaled up and operational in any capacity to the scale needed. Microsoft wants to buy carbon capture services in part to advance the technology and bring its costs down. The market can barely support Microsoft's demands. There's just not enough supply. Okay, buddy. That's fine now, kind of, but it's not fine for 2030 and it's not fine for 2050. The rest of corporate America needs to get into this game. No, the rest of corporate America needs to stop emitting. Get off of fossil fuels in every way that you possibly can. His call to action represents one facet of the tech industry's attempt to wrestle with climate change that includes efforts to cut the industry's own climate footprint. For example, Google's efforts to shift to renewable energy sources. That would be a better example instead of trying to get a carbon capture technology. Just move in whatever ways that you can as quickly as possible to renewable sources and capitalize directly with businesses that profit from fixing the climate. At stake is whether humans can fight climate change we've caused and its dangers, extreme weather events like storms, heat, drought, and plunging biodiversity, among other things. But yes, Microsoft is applying its purchasing power to carbon capture. We came along and said that we want 1 million metric tons that blew the lid off the market. Yeah, except we're still not addressing the underlying issue here, which is the emissions, the fossil fuels. Idea Lab Studio Chief Executive Bill Gross, another techonomy speaker, helped create one startup working the problem. Carbon capture. What is that? The name of the company? Gross hopes it'll eventually pull carbon out of the air economically and at large scale to lower carbon dioxide to levels it was decades ago. I mean, sure, if you're a private investor, I guess, and you want to play that game parallel, sure. But the reality is, the issue is the emissions that keep going, right? To put all our eggs in the proverbial carbon capture basket is just not, it's just not it. It's just not it. Because it doesn't address the underlying problem, which is the emissions. It's the fossil fuels. At least one of the issues, anyways. Yeah, it's our national policy. Burn, baby, burn. Drill. We have to go backwards in time if we want to give the same earth I inherited to my children and grandchildren. Yeah, well, so what they're referring to is going carbon negative, which is true to a degree, yes. Several other companies touted their green tech at the show. Mind you, I don't really trust self-reported numbers, but okay. Live Carbon hopes to make trees better at pulling carbon out of the air using genetic engineering so poplars and other species can convert more carbon dioxide into wood with a given amount of sunlight. They also want to increase how long that carbon stays locked up by adding genes from a plant that absorbs metal like nickel and iron that slow down rotting. Zap Energy is trying to commercialize clean fusion energy that'll work at utility scale, said Chief of Staff AJ Cantor. Researchers have failed to commercialize fusion energy for decades, but interest is high for a technology that would offer steady, clean power with no radioactive waste or meltdown risk. Zap Energy is one of 25 startups that has pulled in $4 billion of VC funding. Microbiome wants to use new strains of bacteria to produce useful chemicals like a precursor to the acrylic acid that's widely used in diapers and plastics. Unlike other bacteria manufacturing techniques, it feeds its bacteria organic waste, not sugars that must be refined. My goal with this company is to literally turn poop into money. Okie dokie. GHGSat has begun launching satellites to pinpoint greenhouse emissions from sources like individual oil wells, landfills, and coal mines. The age of transparency of seeing emissions everywhere around the world is here now. I mean, that's interesting. This is also interesting, but I would like to see a shift in massive investment in hemp. That's if you want to make like plastics and like single-use utensils and all this other stuff, absolutely there should be like a massive investment into hemp. I want you to really stop and think about GHGSat. How do you think you get? Oh, that's a good point. That's a good point. Sir, how do you expect to get said rockets up there? We recycle as much as possible, so excited to get our compost up and running. Oh yeah, compost is great if you have the option. Absolutely. If we are even thinking of businesses under the capitalistic intention of continuous never-ending growth, then carbon capture would never work. There would always be an excess of emissions going into the air than being captured. Carbon captures in no way can get in front of the growth of emissions. Yeah, not only that, like the technology is expensive. It's not up to scale by the time we need it. I mean, like, okay. Vermont has a mandated compost program for all garbage companies. Nice. That's a good idea. Yeah, I see what you're saying, Memo. We already have satellites that could possibly do this. In fact, haven't there been studies already about this? You're right. Energy Vault has begun testing technology to store energy by lifting 35-ton concrete blocks up a tower. What? That's useful for turning intermittent power from solar panels and wind turbines into continuous power. The company plans on a gargantuan building 300 meters square and 100 meters tall that can store a terawatt of power. Hold on, folks. This is literally the plot of Don't Look Up. Damn, wow. Hey, Echo Rested Dragon, how's it going? This is literally the plot of Don't Look Up. We do not have the resources to do anything. We have spoken to our local farm about possible yarn. Oh, that's cool. Hemp is the best. Fuel, fabric, compostable. Fake plastics, it's the best. Yeah, like you could do so much with hemp. You can replace so much with hemp. Anything that has to do with like single-use utensils, like single-use medical equipment, anything that is like plastic related that's single-use could possibly be replaced by hemp. Oh yeah, we got a live one. We had a live one there, Heat. That's pretty funny. Thinking that they can come in here and troll and lob slurs around. No, no. No, 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 no. As if we don't have anything here ready. As if we don't have anything here ready. Trolls have no power here. I was reading that they're using hemp to absorb plastic from damaged soil in Texas. Yeah, the hemp roots are excellent for soil restoration. We are open to possibilities, but our big goal this year is to getting the base of our farm going and becoming more efficient. Nice. Nice. That's very cool. Very, very cool. Yes, thank you. That's the technical, the exact term. Soil remediation. Yes. Yes. I'm gonna make so much noise, chat won't hear you. Kevin coming in with the bongos. That's a cute emote. I love it. Yoshi bongos. How's it going, friend? All compostable. Nice. That's pretty cool. That's pretty cool. I'm okay. That's good to hear. We need 1,000 shots on goal. We need everything. True. Gross said of the different strategies to tackle climate change. There's no single solution that's going to solve everything. I agree. The problem here is that none of these solutions involve reducing emissions. None of these solutions involve anything to do with reducing or eliminating our dependency on fossil fuels. Not one. Not one. Yeah, different bomb. Yeah, none of these involve reduction in carbon emissions. Just technocratic gobbledygook. Just technocratic gobbledygook. Carbon pricing is an option, but just use less and go renewable. Right, that's the whole point, is to move in the direction that is decoupling ourselves from fossil fuels in whatever way that we can. As soon as possible, in every way that possible. No, I think there was a miscommunication, Mayhem Hippie. You're good. Wrong type of palm. You're good. You're good. That is pretty cool, though. Compost is awesome. Yes, worms. Worms are good. Worms are good, my friend. They're good for the soil, too. They make soil. They also biodegrade, break down stuff, I should say. Worms are life. True. Embrace the worm, Kevin. Embrace the worm. All right, let's check this out. We haven't shown enough love to this channel.
Hey y'all, it's Becky here from the Beckosphere, where we talk about climate news and solutions. You've entered a climate recap where we look at what is being done to reduce the impacts of and prepare for climate change. If you would like to stay up to date with the latest climate...
Folks, if you haven't already, consider clicking the link. Just take 5 seconds and go subscribe to this channel. So just do it, all right? Praying mantis, ladybugs, and bees are base. True. Microorganisms are so cool. True. That's right. Worms are so crucial. My green thumb thrives because I use worms in my houseplants. Please do not use potting soil if using worms. Worm tea fertilizer and rich compost. True. True. Worms and worm poop poggers. True. Hey, casual callouts. How's it going? I'll post the link again in chat. Please go show some love. Please go subscribe, like, follow, all of that.
Information, please consider hitting the subscribe button below and ringing the bell so that you are notified every single time I post. I do these climate recaps about every 2 weeks. This time we will look at the climate news from March 1st to 15th, so the first half of March. Let's start with examples of climate changing. Tasmania recorded the driest summer in 40 years due to the climate-strained La Nina, making rainfall practically impossible in the region. Rainfall has been about 43% below average. Meanwhile, through these 2 weeks, Australia, specifically New South Wales and Queensland, has struggled
I gotta go to work,
historical
but
flooding.
then I get to buy some KFC. Oof. See ya, Kevin. Appreciate that. Appreciate you stopping by. Unfortunately, KFC is not for me, my friend. Sorry. But enjoy. Cheeseburger Freedom has subscribed with a tier 1 sub. Thank you so much for the support. I appreciate that. Thank you. Hang tight at work, Kevin. Thank you for stopping by. Thank you, Cheeseburger Freedom. Appreciate it. Love the username, too. Cheeseburger Freedom Eagle. Nice. Hopefully KFC wasn't one of those PFAS brands. As far as I can tell, they only tested a limited amount of brands, and from what we read yesterday, it didn't end up on the list of things that were tested. That does not mean their stuff doesn't use PFAS. It just means they weren't tested. It just means that they didn't make the list. Cheeseburger Freedom Eagle. That is the most American name I've seen thus far. Thank you for the love to the name, showing love to the stream. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. Thank you for the support.
2 extreme weather events in a row, like a bushfire and now deadly floods, puts the continent's food supply at risk. Tack onto that a pandemic and now a war that's hurting the world's breadbasket. Russia and Ukraine provide almost 30% of the world's wheat exports, almost 20% of the world's corn exports, and almost 80% of the world's sunflower oil exports.
What?
Kenya farmers are also struggling from climate-induced drought, and now the wheat supply from this war. So they're also struggling over there too. 75% of the U.S. Pacific Northwest is experiencing some level of drought. California had its driest January and February in history. And then in Florida, the Panhandle fire caused thousands of homes to evacuate on March 8th and only recently became fully contained. It was fueled by Hurricane Michael debris. A new map came out recently that looks at how biodiversity is impacted in the U.S. It doesn't look very good, especially in California.
Yeah, I suspect that because of all of these destructive wildfires, that has to have had a massive impact. Not only that, quite possibly the droughts too.
There's only 13% of the country that's permanently a protected space. Biden's goal to protect 30% of federal lands and waters by 2030 is a good goal, but we have a long way to go. Biodiversity is the net holding the global system in balance enough to sustain humans. Simply put, if it falls, we fall.
Yeah, just, the small things in life, right, Memo? The little things in life, like living. Oh, holy shit. That's rough. That is rough.
Speaking of biodiversity, scientists at the University of Miami think that they've found a new Caribbean staghorn coral species that might be able to be conditioned to tolerate warmer waters. All tropical coral reefs are being threatened by climate change.
True.
This matters because coral reefs are biodiversity hubs that protect coastlines from storms and erosion, sustain many fishing industries, and even provide ingredients for medicine. So this is good news that there might be a few coral species that will be able to survive the next 30 years. Onto the land though, scientists are seeing 75% of the Amazon rainforest is losing its ability to bounce back from extreme weather events like wildfires.
Yikes.
The Amazon is an essential ecosystem for maintaining Earth's water cycle and for sucking up carbon from the atmosphere. The Amazon is destabilizing due to mass deforestation, particularly in Brazil, for agricultural operations like cattle ranching and palm oil farms. So literally the cheeseburger and fries, if you will. Another recent study, this one published in the journal Nature Sustainability, found that deforestation is emitting more greenhouse gases than previously thought. Carbon loss from deforestation has doubled in the last 2 decades and continues to rise. Since 2000, we have lost 10% of the world's tree cover, making deforestation the second largest emitter for humans after fossil fuels. The Amazon has a century's worth of carbon emissions living inside. Now,
holy yikes, Batman. The country I'm in, Klamath County, governor's already declared drought declarations, the first this year. Wow. I don't worry so much for the planet. She'll be alright in the long-term, geological term. It's us I worry for. This iteration of advanced life isn't long at this rate. Oh yeah, if we keep going, it ain't looking good, to say the least. If we keep this up, it ain't sustainable. And it's going to, I don't know if it's going to like cause the collapse of the human race as a whole, but certainly it will be catastrophic. And I'm not sure just how bad it's going to get, but I do know that it's going to be very, very bad for a lot of people, to the tune of probably billions. So, let's just avoid that as much as we can, yeah? Let's just try to steer clear of that, or at least try to mitigate as much as possible. Let's just try to focus on that, yeah?
November at COP26, countries representing 90% of the world's forests agreed to halt and reverse deforestation by 2030, which is great, except that they're not really following through.
Yeah,
Brazil
we went over the whole COP. We went over the whole COP26. It's a lot of, for the lack of a better term, blah, 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 than anything. Sad.
January and February. Last depressing study for you for now. Northern Europe and Siberia is becoming too warm and wet to sustain their permafrost peatlands and will lose 75% of them even in moderate warming scenarios by the 2060s. Permafrost peatland holds as much carbon as all the forests in Europe combined.
Jesus.
So this would be very bad. Okay, let's get on to some climate victories, starting off with the international stuff. I'm US based, as a reminder. Welcome to all the new people, by the way. The EU has told its 26 member states to use money from taxing energy firms and polluters to pay for clean energy and electrification to get themselves off Russian oil. 40% of EU's gas comes from Russia, and it seems like this war has woken up some countries to understand how intertwined Russia is with the fossil fuel industry. The plan is called Repower EU, and officials claim that they can get the EU 2/3 of the way off Russia oil by this year. Germany passed the Renewable Energy Act to get its energy sector to 100% clean energy by 2035. That means doubling onshore wind capacity and quadrupling offshore wind and solar capacity. To make this transition smoother, the government will legally oblige power suppliers to reduce consumer bills after the levy on the power price is scrapped in July 2022.
Damn, so actual policy that has a meaningful plan to move in the direction of renewables. Damn. It's almost like if there is a political will to address this issue, there are policy prescriptions that could be proposed. Unfortunately, the U.S. is not interested in even entertaining these ideas. All we've gotten is a whole lot of malarkey. A whole lot of malarkey. No solutions. That's right.
Is also to spend $220 billion by 2026 in the form of industrial transformation. We're talking EV charging, hydrogen technology, and climate protection.
Damn.
On March 12th, tens of thousands of people took part in a climate protest across France. Their presidential election is next month, but the climate crisis took up only 1.5% of talking points in media coverage of the election campaign from February 28th to March 6th. What's up with that? So 40,000 to 80,000 people protested, depending on who you ask. And 4 days later, the French government ended subsidies for gas heaters and boosted support for heat pumps. Countries are starting to invest in heat pumps, which help along the electrification process, getting them away from Russia, oil, and gas, and saving households around £100 a year off their energy bill.
Nice.
If you add rooftop solar to the mix, then that would save them about £500
nice.
per year. France wants to end its dependency on Russian oil and gas by 2027. But if they go by the EU standard of 2/3 by the end of this year, that could go a lot faster. Let's take a break from Europe for a sec and go over to Mumbai, which just became the first South Asian city to create a detailed net zero roadmap. Home to 19 million residents, Mumbai is the home of South Asia's biggest corporations, the stock market, and the central bank. It's the richest city in India. Their goal is to get to net zero by 2050, which is 20 years earlier than India's national goal. And their plan is to totally overhaul their energy, water, air, waste, transit, and even green spaces. That sounds like they have the right idea. Over to the US, the Environmental Protection Agency proposed an extension for the plan to cut ozone depleting chemicals, nitrogen oxides, for 26 states, mainly east and middle states, though also Wyoming, Utah, Nevada, and California. Their goal is to reduce this smog maker by 26% by 2026. Part of that means new stringent limits on pollution for buses, delivery vans, tractor trailers, and other heavy trucks. California instead is allowed to set its own emission standards again because it's been ahead of the country on emission standards since the Clean Air Act was created. But recently, during the Trump administration, their authority was taken away, so now their authority is back. Sorry, by the way, that my California video has not come up again. I know I said I would get it up last Monday, but some scheduling issues came up, and so now I'm shooting for this Friday. Thank you for your patience, but look forward to a very researched video.
Nice.
It's going to be probably pretty long, so make sure you have a nice beverage when you watch it. The compliant cost for making this switch would be about
Oops, all malarkey. True. Hey, Eric, how's it going? 2070? Unblackpill me? No can do, my friend. There's only doom. There's only doom and blackpill here. No, I think the reality is, like, we should acknowledge the fact that the situation is pretty dire, but we should channel that energy into action, right? It's acknowledging the fact that there is. Certainly, I would suspect that a lot of us are pretty much black-pilled to the point where it's just pretty depressing to listen to this and to understand the reality of, what's going on. But we can transform that into energy to action, basically. The worst thing that we can do is use that black pill to become apathetic. The worst thing that could happen is to use that black pill to become apathetic.
$0.9 billion compared to the human benefit of $9.3 billion. So it seems pretty worth it. Though some people wish that the administration would have imposed EV truck mandate. But this still is a good move, so let's hope that this new EPA proposal doesn't get challenged in the courts too hard. 22 states have come out saying that they do support the new EU plan. I feel like the EU is trying to make as many moves as it can before it loses its power potentially in the Supreme Court ruling, West Virginia versus the EPA.
That's
which
right.
has been trying to strip the EPA's authority to regulate chemicals to maintain the nation's clean air, which is a very big problem.
That's right. We've been talking about that
one. The best for Chevron. First, Earth Client announced that it was representing activist shareholders who want to block the re-election of its chairman and chief executive, citing his failure to cut emissions.
Wait, really? An oil and gas company failing to cut its emissions. Yeah. Okie dokie. I'll believe Chevron when I see it. Or worse yet, reckless. Yeah, I mean, we are being reckless at this point, yeah? A fossil fuel company lying about its emissions, about the way it's cutting its emissions, when its whole sole business is emissions? I mean, okay. Internal investigations always tell the truth. Yeah, true. Don't worry. The foxes guard the hen house, yeah? Don't worry, we'll investigate ourselves. It'll be fine.
So that's going on. Then Texas charged the company $120 million and required the company to upgrade its infrastructure as necessary to reduce flaring activities. Flaring is when oil companies burn off natural gas instead of capturing it during the drilling process. So it's just wasted energy with potent greenhouse gas emissions. And less than a week ago, a Chevron oil tanker was spotted getting more oil from Russia, even though it promised to cease operations there in solidarity with Ukraine.
What? An oil company lying? A massive oil company lying? That's what the black pill is. When you've said nothing can be done. If there's actually time left and there's things that can be done you've not taken yet, the black pill you've just helped. So you just helped even if you don't know it. Hey, maybe I have the misconception of the black pill. But yeah, the whole point is to accept that, there is definitely a dire situation happening, but instead of becoming apathetic, you should channel that energy into doing something, right? Because once there is actually no more time left, then that's it. It's GG. Then that's GG. Once there really is no time left, then it is really GG. So until that time, it ain't over, isn't it? Until that time, it ain't over. Interesting. Listen, if you think that you're going to be a troll here, I have some bad news for you.
So that's just scummy, and I hope that they get dinged for it. They
won't.
are not the only oil company to be caught doing this, and the Ukraine has called on the US to issue tougher sanctions. This seems like as good a segue as ever to start talking about climate change fails.
True.
Starting with more international fossil fuel shenanigans. Oh, and please wait till the end for my favorite climate victory point. It's kind of a fun one. The offshore wind company Ørsted is accusing the fossil fuel company BP of trying to block part of the UK's offshore wind farm off of Yorkshire coast. Both of these companies have secured rights to build offshore winds there, but BP is trying to block
We've had several today, so
Ørsted from building on the part where they share authority because BP wants to store carbon under the sea floor. Now, the idea of storing carbon under the seafloor is complex, and I'm sure there's plenty of opinions on it, though I haven't looked too far into that on its own. But the new report by the UK think tank Energy Transition Commission does argue that carbon capture and carbon offset markets will be needed at this point to limit the warming below 1.5 degrees Celsius above pre-industrial levels. BP isn't wrong for wanting to include carbon storage in their design.
So the TLDR on that is that we need to go carbon negative, is what she's suggesting.
Though I do worry about the storage process's impact on the marine ecosystem. The main problem is that the plan would render a quarter of the space dedicated to offshore wind farms useless, removing 675 megawatts of clean energy. It could also hurt Ørsted's ability to win a government auction to sell the energy at a fixed price, which is crucial for the wind farm's viability. So it's not a good move for them to be doing this, basically, if we're going to encourage the offshore wind.
Yeah, well, I think we need more renewable sources than we do. This is just like fascination with hiding the problem. This focus on just hiding the problem instead of addressing it head on and being like, look, we just can't continue to emit fossil fuels. We just can't do it. We got to do everything that we could possibly can do in whatever ways that we can decouple ourselves from fossil fuels is what we should be moving towards. That's it. Instead of trying to like make these like, 200 D-chess moves about inventing technology to store carbon underneath the seafloor. And like, dude, just stop emitting in whatever ways that we can, as quickly as possible, whatever it is, in whatever areas that we can. I don't understand. What? You want them to unline their pockets and help the environment? Yeah. I know it's a hard ask. If you have green energy, there's no carbon waste to recover and store. Damn, that's a very good point. What is the subject? The subject is the end of the world, as we know it. No, this is climate news recap. That's what we're doing.
Let's go now to another emissions-heavy industry, agribusiness. 5 of the biggest agribusiness firms, that's ADM, Bunge, Cargill, LDC, and Viterra, tried to thwart EU efforts to reduce deforestation, which has been linked to food products such as palm oil, cocoa, beef, coffee, and soy. The EU started these efforts after signing a pledge to end deforestation by 2050 during COP26, the International Climate Conference in November 2021. The agriculture industry is responsible for 1/4 of global carbon emissions, and a large amount of this is due to deforestation, particularly in the Amazon rainforest. These 5 firms have argued that attempting to reduce deforestation will result in food shortages and soaring prices. Wait, so they're really saying that we have 2 options, either to deforest the Amazon or go hungry? That's
Jesus
a pretty scary
Christ.
world to live in if they think these are the only 2 options.
Yeah, this is a false dichotomy. Like, just on its surface, you're like, wait a minute, hold on. Really? Really? You're gonna threaten us with starvation? Okay, buddy. As if there are other ways of doing things. As if we have absolutely no capability of doing things another way. Okay, that's a good meme.
Also, in destroying the Amazon, agribusinesses are actually making the region less hospitable for the crops and cows. A new study found that the area is getting drier and hotter.
Yeah.
And let's not forget what I said earlier about what deforestation is doing to the planet at large.
Right, like, the whole point is... The whole point of this is sustainability, right? The whole point is to dictate, like, okay, if you can't grow your food, I mean, you can't eat money. So long term, I don't understand what the plan is. The plan is the short term. The plan is the short term. Sorry, I got off on my train of thought was derailed for a second. But yes, thank you, Cheeseburger. The point is, what I was trying to say earlier is, it's all about the short term. They're not calculating the long term game because it's not really their thing. If you can't figure out how to cut emissions, there's no way you're going to pull adequate portions out of carbon out of the atmosphere to prevent future warming. We've already gone past what we are already capable of reducing with capture. They're on the deck of the Titanic trying to keep the vessel afloat by scooping water out with buckets. Right, that's exactly what it is. That's exactly what it is. That's exactly what it is. Like, the whole point is to figure out ways to decouple, to stop emissions in whatever ways possible, in as many ways as possible, as quickly as possible, with whatever means that we have right now and available to us. That's what we should be focusing on, not these just like unnecessary, I would almost say unrealistic ways of dealing with the problem. And every single one of these solutions, especially the ones that we were looking at earlier, none of them involve cutting emissions. All I can think of is the episode of the Futurama where all the robots release gas to move the planet a few degrees to solve the problems of global warming. There we go. Yeah, that's literally that's analogous to the solutions that these technocrats have come up with, basically. Or like that scene where they drop an ice cube ever so often, every decade or something like that, but every time they have to like keep dropping more ice cubes in the water. Yeah. Right, if you can't patch the hole, you're done. True. So a forest doesn't provide food? None at all. None at all.
So bottom line, this is a very short-lived, self-serving goal that they are going through right now.
Correct.
To look at the bigger picture
Correct.
for a sec, a new analysis published in the journal Nature found that G20 nations only spent 6% of their COVID recovery funds on building back greener. Additionally, 3% of the COVID funds was spent on carbon-intensive activities and industries, like coal subsidies. An example of a G20 country spending stuff on coal is India. India pledged to be carbon neutral by 2070 during COP26 in November, but India then never submitted any emissions targets to actually follow through with this pledge. Instead, it expects private coal mines to produce at least 350 million tons of coal by 2030.
Right.
What are they doing?
Right, because again, the whole like COP26 was a lot of malarkey, to say the least. They had like 500 representatives or lobbyists or folks who were either directly or indirectly related to the fossil fuel industry, much larger than any delegation of any of the countries. I mean, no real palpable plans put forth, no real ways of enforcing each other's goals or each other's pledges. I mean, it was a good PR stunt, I guess. It was a good PR stunt. Yeah, COP26, exactly. Oh, man.
It's the wrong direction. So let's talk about the Ukrainian crisis now for a bit and fossil fuels again. Ukraine's leading climate scientist said that this is a fossil fuel war, saying, quote, burning oil, gas, and coal is causing warming and impacts we need to adapt to. And Russia sells these resources and uses the money to buy weapons. Other countries are dependent upon this fossil fuel war. It's clear that we cannot continue to live this way without destroying our civilization. Honestly, the biggest thing that Svetlana Kragowska thought that she would be doing the week that Russia invaded was releasing the IPCC report, which she was one of the authors of for the last 8 years. She and her 4 children are still in Kyiv and my thoughts go out to them. I will leave some links in the description box below if you would like to make a donation to Ukrainians to help. 5 oil execs recently cashed out on $99 million in stock since late February, according to a new analysis conducted by nonprofits Bailout Watch and Friends of the Earth. We're talking about the CEO of Hess Corporations, the CEO and director of Pioneer Natural Resources, the CEO of Marathon Oil, and the president of Continental Resources cashing out on a war. Now, the U.S. has banned Russian oil imports, but as I talked about.
What? Companies taking opportunity to cash out on a conflict? No way.
With Chevron earlier, not all companies are actually done making money off of this tragedy. US-based fossil fuel companies immediately started using the war as a marketing tool to argue for more permits and fewer regulations, even...
Oh no, don't worry, we're getting to us in a second. We're getting to us in a second.
Though they aren't even using all the permits that they already have. You can learn more about this in Climate Town's latest video, so I will leave that up in the cards. Something sneaky that I noticed that fossil fuel companies have been doing is they've been advertising themselves as the energy industry. So when they don't like something, they will start saying, this is against the energy industry, even though most of the time it's good for the rest of the energy industry. When the war started, the American Petroleum Institute, which represents a lot of fossil fuel companies, tweeted, unleash the energy industry. Don't do that. No. Do not unleash the fossil fuel industry, because they are already plenty unleashed. Global carbon emissions reached their highest level in history in 2021, and that was predominantly due to China's increase in coal use. So we literally can't afford, like India, to do the same or for us to unleash more. All right, let's take a sec to enjoy my favorite climate victory point. OkCupid came out with a survey recently that found that caring about the environment is a big deal for people. 90% of the 250,000 people surveyed over the past year said that it was important to care about. 81% of the 6 million people surveyed in the last 3 years said that it was important to care about.
Yeah, I mean, like, clean coal. Yeah, that's a good meme. That's a good meme.
I love that. Women were 7% more likely than men to care about the environment. Okay, so we got through some of the main news points that I wanted to dive into. Now let's go and look at the other news points that took place on the first half of March.
Can't find love if we're all gone, if we're all Robloxed, yeah? We're all dead.
For other climate change studies, wildfires may slow the recovery of the ozone layer.
True.
A study showed the Australian bushfires did just that. The expanding and more destructive wildfire season is harming firefighters' mental health. A small study among Canadian firefighters found that 87% of them came away from the last bad wildfire season with mental health issues.
Wow.
There hasn't been enough research done on this issue, though, to know how many firefighters have taken their lives. Just a growing amount of analogies to imply that there is definitely a rise in this rate. 40% of the world's insect population is declining, and a third of insects are considered endangered. Again,
and that's a huge red flag. That's a massive red flag. The insect population being in such a decline is a massive red flag. Like, that's not good. To illustrate, Heavy stuff, really sad, but important to understand. True. Yeah, can't we just pay Mars to dump our carbon there? True. I do not like bugs or creepy crawly things, but I understand the importance of their role in things. Yeah, that's it. This is the meme right here.
Diversity is our safety net. Without insects, our food system collapses. The combination of climate change and plastic chemicals is hindering fish growth.
As Memo said, biodiversity and our ecosystems are what keeps us alive. Like I said, if we want to continue enjoying the little things in life, like food and living, it would behoove us to address this problem.
Researchers say that we need to find new wheat varieties to withstand global warming. Researchers say that if China can peak emissions by 2025 instead of 2030, then they can save hundreds of thousands of lives. Global cyclone activity between 1990 and 2021 has not increased, but has gotten more damaging. Hurricanes in North Carolina have been linked to an increase in gastrointestinal illnesses in particularly marginalized communities. Scientists warn that seawalls could make rising seas worse in the long run.
I think I saw something like that.
Chemical facilities in the U.S. are threatened by climate change due to sea level rise and extreme weather events. The last thing we need is more chemical spills. Okay, let's move on to some other climate victories, or action points, like this first one. A study laid out the 6 key lifestyle changes a person can make to help avert the climate crisis. They became part of a JUMP campaign, which people can commit to for 1, 3, or 6 months to work on these goals, which is a little funny because a lot of these have to do multi-year goals, but they are eating a plant-based diet, buying no more than 3 articles of clothing a year, keeping electrical products for at least 7 years, taking no more than 1 short-haul flight every 3 years and 1 long-haul flight every 8 years, getting rid of personal motor vehicles or keeping a vehicle for as long as you can,
nice.
And making at least 1 other life shift to nudge the system, like moving towards clean energy, insulating your home, or changing your pension provider. All of these are really good steps. I hope that the flights are round trip and not single trip, and I will say that I'm going to try to do these more, though I have my own personal caveats. I haven't really gone into on this channel what I personally do to make an environmental impact, because I'm trying to reduce the amount of individual responsibility on.
Right, because she's right about just only focusing on the individual is like a bad. It's a PR campaign that a lot of these companies engage in, moving things, shifting responsibility from the actual companies to the individual. However, as she says, I want to not focus on shifting the responsibility of individual peoples. But that being said, I mean, there are small things that you can do that you yourself can do, and it should be done if you can. I'm not gonna knock it. It's really simple to create bee houses, plant wildfires, and not the pretty flowers you get from Lowe's. We always put out wildfires every year. It looks messy, but we're providing food for so many. Yes. Transcend food. That's right. That's all we gotta do. I've been using the same old Mac Mini for 10 years for my TV. Nice. Right, that's the whole exactly, Mayhem. Obviously, just one person by themselves, you're not gonna solve single-handedly the climate crisis. But hey, if you can, and you can make certain choices, especially when it comes to attempting to engage with the idea of plant-based diets, less consumerism, which is good. I mean, yeah, if these things are things that are within your purview and you can do, I mean, why not, right? I live in an apartment. I can't even turn my radiator off. Yeesh. Military is a prime driver. I think the military is a massive part, yes. Native wildfires are awesome for bees and animals, true.
People, but if you want me to go more into what I personally do to reduce my environmental impact, let me know in the comments below, and maybe I'll consider making a video for that.
I mean, she's got a bike in the background, so I can take a few guesses.
Anyways, Brazil's beef industry is claiming to start tackling methane emissions using fermentation and other more sustainable agriculture practices to help store carbon in the soil. They're also trying to feed cattle different things to help reduce their emissions through farting and burping. Red Cross International has officially started calling climate change a national security concern. In France, several environmental groups have come together to sue Total Energies for tricking consumers into thinking that they were cleaner than they were. Basically, they were greenwashing themselves. In the UK, Shell's board of 13 directors is being sued by a group of activist shareholders for failing to prepare for the company's net zero future. The shareholders are being represented by Earth Client, which was also in a previous lawsuit that I mentioned, who has a good track record for winning cases, and they are trying to argue that Shell's directors are breaching the duties under the UK's Company Act by not following through with the Paris Climate Accord agreements. Climate Action 100 Plus, the world's largest group of investors pushing companies to reduce emissions faster, are urging airlines to curtail growth and use sustainable fuel. The Global Standard on Responsible Climate Lobbying is urging companies to lobby for climate
sustainable fuel. Huh. Okay. Yeah, I always have like large skepticism when it comes to companies making like massive like claims or PR stunts. Our vehicles are older and we need them. Riding a bike here in the winter is an extreme sport, not a choice to reduce emissions. Yeah, but there are, within those purviews, there are better choices that you can do, or you can try to do. Like, for example, if you do have a vehicle, which obviously our cities and the way we plan things, unfortunately, were made with the car in mind. But there are better ways, maybe trying to keep them, try to keep vehicles as long as possible would be another option. If you have a vehicle, and if you have already a vehicle, then just keep it as long as possible instead of like buying a new one if you don't absolutely have to. That's another option. Little things, I want to do berries, seed bombs, so we can get more native berries for animals and people going. Won't fix food insecurity, but it's something. Hey, that's cool. That's a good idea. Green hydrogen, yes, not blue hydrogen or gray hydrogen. Green hydrogen is one option. Like Google claiming net zero. Yeah. We need to seriously address waste management as well. Moving trash from our home and apartment to some sanctioned zone is just kicking the issue down the road. Yeah, and like the reason why like waste management is also such a big problem is because A, consumerism, B, planned obsolescence, C, the way we make things is not sustainable in any way, shape, or form, so it stays and creates these massive landfills and stuff. Nice, from 2001. Nice. Hey, as long as it keeps running. As long as it keeps running. That's a good point. Casual callouts. That's a good point. Waste management.
Issues. London is expanding its ultra-low emission zone to city limits. So instead of just being the main part of the city, it's the whole city. World nations are considering a global pact to ramp up protections for nature, and environmental groups want rich nations to pay $60 billion a year to protect developing countries' nature. The pact is currently considering $10 billion a year. The Arctic Council, which manages operations in the Arctic as it warms, kicked out Russia amid the Ukrainian invasion. The Umbrella Group, a negotiating bloc of non-EU developed countries on climate change, also removed Russia and Belarus from the group. The newly elected Honduras government banned open-pit mining. Colombia launched an offshore wind plan with its first project. The Saudi Energy Ministry awarded 2 renewable energy projects with a total capacity of 1,000 megawatts. And Northern Ireland finally committed to net zero emissions by 2050. Over in the US, the Biden administration announced it won't appeal the judge's ruling, which revoked all of the Gulf of Mexico drilling leases made last summer. Electric vehicle sales in the US skyrocketed last year. The National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, or NOAA, launched its latest weather and fire tracking satellite into orbit. The American Psychological Association released an action plan for psychologists on how to best address the climate crisis. Peabody, America's biggest coal producer, is putting solar panels and battery storage on retired coal mines in Indiana and Illinois. Colorado will require fossil fuel companies to provide more bonds to ensure there is enough money to clean up wells and their overall projects. The first net zero development is coming to Rockaway and Queens, part of New York City, after Hurricane Sandy demolished the area. The designers promise affordable housing. The mayor of Boston, Michelle Wu, is embarking on an ambitious food policy agenda. Oregon's largest solar energy facility yet gains final approval. U.S. farmers are improving their practices to be more sustainable, but there's still definitely room for improvement. This increasingly obnoxious headline means a varied spending package approved some money for water projects. Side note, but headlines like these do not inspire engagement. Please do not throw the dictionary at people. Like we're seeing in Europe, the idea of heat pumps reducing reliance on Russian fossil fuels is being floated around the US too. Indiana barred Duke Energy, the largest energy supplier in the US, from pushing off coal ash cleanup payments onto customers, and Amazon is working to use more clean construction methods. Now on to other climate.
I'm sorry. Again, excuse me if I'm a little bit skeptical about claims that Amazon does. You know, I live near a stretch of highway known as Trash Mountains. They were supposed to become ski resorts. Too bad the Midwest doesn't get snow anymore, so they're just as gnarly, stupid of an idea as when they started. Yikes. Yikes. That's funny because we call all our landfills trash mountains too. We've got several here in Florida. We call them trash mountains. Yep.
Fails starting internationally. The IPCC report warns that half-assing climate responses are becoming more common and wasting money and time, and sometimes resulting in more emissions and problems.
Yep.
Electric vehicles can't hold a charge as well in the winter, so that is a design flaw that we need to figure out, though Tesla seems to be better at holding charge during the winter than other models. The EU missed its wind capacity installation target by more than 50% in 2021. The UK is missing the $67 billion mark needed for the clean energy shift. The UK's plan to offset emissions through tree planting has failed due to lack of incentives and funding. Boris Johnson suggested the UK should relax green targets due to the war. Climate advisors found multiple risks of failure in the UK's Green Home Plan. And a new Scottish climate change report rebukes ministers for stalling on climate action. Whew, okay, the UK's not looking so hot right now. Over in Canada, the country's oil and gas emissions cap may be delayed until 2023, leaving a hole in their climate plans. 5 timber companies are in charge of the fate of BC's old growth forests. Older trees absorb more carbon better than younger trees and are the backbone of forest ecosystems, and they're also more fire resistant. So there's 3 reasons why they should not cut down old growth forests. And Australia's environmental
Wait. And private companies shouldn't be in charge of this. No way.
Susan Ley successfully
Private lumber companies shouldn't be in charge of this.
appealed a previous ruling stating that she has a duty to protect the environment for future generations. So I guess the environmental minister doesn't have a responsibility to reduce impact on environment for future generations.
So then what
is her job again? What's the purpose then? Now to the US. US ethanol subsidies might be another way that we are indirectly supporting Russia. US-backed companies are poised to expand mining in the Amazon. Amazon, the company, is allegedly drastically undercounting its greenhouse gas emissions. The US beef industry is still not being asked to do much to reduce emissions. Redlining, a racist Depression-era method where lenders considered areas with higher percentage of colored people higher risk for real estate investment, has unsurprisingly contributed to unequal air pollution across America, a big environmental justice problem. A gas leak at the ConocoPhillips Alaska drilling site forces some people to leave for the sake of their health. Kentucky joins a growing list of states that want to boycott companies that want to boycott fossil fuels. Florida lawmakers voted to phase out subsidies for rooftop solar. The Minnesota Senate...
Jesus Christ. Yeah, timber companies are in charge of the forest in that story. I think we need a cute animal video after this. Wait. Yeah, I think we do. I think we do. The fox is in charge of the hen house,
introduced a bill that would block clean car standards. The U.S. government only approved $1 billion in climate finance for developing countries several years after developing countries promised to provide $100 billion for developing countries every year. The U.S.'s tsunami warning system needs a lot of upgrades. And West Virginia Senator Joe Manchin blocked Sarah Bloom Raskin's nomination for a top Federal Reserve position because he didn't like that she supported clean energy. Biden officially removed the nomination after the fact. Okay, finally on to fossil fuel fails, which honestly is starting to become chemical fails, but a lot of these chemicals either rely on fossil fuels or are in the environment because of fossil fuel companies. So I think I'm keeping the name. The UK overruled scientific advice by lifting a ban on bee-harming pesticides. Similarly, the US EPA is planning to allow the use of 4 insect-paralyzing pesticides for another 15 years. US officials also reversed course on banning a pesticide that harms wildlife after chemical companies said that they will put better labels on their products instead. Meanwhile, LA is suing 3 companies over toxic PCBs in waterways. US Steel was fined $1.8 million for hydrogen sulfide emissions at their Clairton plant. A new study found that higher levels of PFAS, forever chemicals found in plastics, may increase people's chances of catching COVID. The Department of Defense is investigating US sites for PFAS contamination, but at the same time, the Air Force is considering blowing up toxic waste, which includes PFAS, on a beach in Guam. So that's a little inconsistent. And half of Americans were exposed to lead as children, lowering IQ by 2 points on average. One of the main exposure points was leaded gasoline. And that was the climate recap from March 1st to 15th. Please let me know in the comment section which news points you found the most interesting. I think the OkCupid thing is hilarious and it gives me hope. Until next time, remember to talk about the climate crisis every single day and to support your local news organizations. Thank you.
Yes, please go support this channel. I'll post the link. Yeah.
A little more handsome than the average raccoon. A lady brought Boone to us and she said that her lab had...
Wait, blowing up what? Wait, did you hear that at the end, or? I mean, we could check it out.
$67 billion mark needed for environmental justice. A lot of upgrades. And West Virginia Senator Joe pesticides for another 15 years. U.S. officials also reversed course on banning a pesticide that harms wildlife after chemical companies said that they will put better labels on their products instead. Meanwhile, LA is suing 3 companies. Forever chemicals found in forest is considering blowing up toxic waste, which includes PFAS.
There we go. That's the headline. Blowing up toxic military waste on a beach in Guam. Because of course. Because of course. Yeah. Yeah, just nuke Mars. That'll do it. If it explodes, the problem is solved. True. True.
Carefully brought him in his mouth to her.
Isn't that the cutest?
Old. He still had his eyes closed. I realized for sure that something was off about his growth when he should have been able to start walking. And he seemed wobbly. He would just kind of spill over.
Aw, poor little dude.
The vet diagnosed him with cerebellar hypoplasia. He's in no pain and he's just wobbly when he walks. The first steps we took after he got the diagnosis was to figure out how to manage his environment to help him. Second thing was to increase his strength. The big thing that's just been recent is I was holding him one day and he just started bouncing up and down.
That's cute.
And I know you're gonna think I'm crazy, but it's when we play soul funk, like Earth, Wind, and Fire music, he starts bouncing everywhere. If you put on like John Mayer or somebody like that, he's just not into it. His feeding is one area that he's not gotten less messy with.
He's real big.
We have to kind of hold him upright, and he wiggles the whole time.
He's doing a real big thing.
Oh yeah.
Some of Boone's favorite activities, definitely being in his little red car and his little baby holder. He loves getting in it, and we take him in the four-wheeler. He loves that. Boone loves car rides, and some of that is the music, I think. Some of it's the attention. He loves French fries. He loves being with Benton and just rolling around in the grass with him. Benton is a great Pyrenees. Benton was actually the only dog, and to this day, the only one that will really play with Boone and just be there with him. It's a real love connection, I guess.
Dude, that's so cute.
I think part of what Benton loves
Cute
about
provides me
Boone
hopium.
is
True.
he scratches, because he'll sometimes lay over and it's like, get me right here. And, does his head over. He does the thing with his paw. Benton's learning to be a little more gentle with that. But it's his way of just making sure.
Animals absolutely do react to music, by the way. 100%. My cat has musical preferences. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Boone's there and he got him. I think they're lucky to have each other.
Without a doubt. Oh yeah,
He used the
100%.
sling to help him to be able to start walking by himself. And he's made pretty tremendous improvements with that.
Oh, yeah.
The way that the whole wheelchair came about is I knew he was going to need something custom made. So I contacted our local high school, and they were so receptive to it.
Aww.
I love him so much.
Buddy.
He warms my heart every morning when I get to go wake him up. Boone has definitely changed my life. I love him this much. I'm so excited about what he can teach others about how to love and wrap me.
That is absolutely adorable. Absolutely adorable. Absolutely adorable. Little buddy needs some monster truck decals. Yeah. There you go. All right, folks. We've got a couple of things left. But first, we do need to take a second. We do need to take a second first. A quick shill sesh. For a quick shill sesh. This month's sponsor, brought to us by Stream Elements. Or I guess connected us through Stream Elements, is indeed HelloFresh. Folks, if you hit exclamation mark HelloFresh, you will get that link and use code code POG, not COD, POG SE2534 to get up to 15 free wow, I'm so bad at this. 16 free meals, 3 surprise gifts across 6 HelloFresh boxes, and free shipping on your first box. Just hit exclamation mark HelloFresh, and if you're on the YouTubes, click on the link. There's also the channel page panel in which you can select that. Use code POGSE2534. It does help us. It does support the channel as well. So consider that. We've used HelloFresh before. Definitely, I can say with confidence, we've used it for more than a year. And the cool thing about it is that we've got a stack about this big of recipes. So once you're done, hey, just keep the recipes and keep making the food. There are veggie options as well weekly. So consider supporting the channel by supporting our sponsor for this month. Exclamation point HelloFresh. Also, just a quick show here. If you guys haven't already, hit the follow button. It does help us out. Spread the word far and wide that this is a chill's place to be for news and politics, Monday through Thursday, 9 a.m. Eastern Time. Join us for Saturday Catterdays. Also, exclamation mark YT for YouTube. Just take a second, hit the subscribe button. It does help us out. And as casual callouts, just hit exclamation Discord to keep up with the channel as well. I appreciate that. Thank you guys. Yeah, you also get 5 free emotes once you hit the follow button. One of them being Vaquita the cat. Casual callouts with the 100 biddies. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. Thank you. All right, so just a really quick run through. It looks like Senator Susan Collins will vote to confirm the Supreme Court nominee Ketanji Jackson, being the first GOP senator to do so. So it looks like her confirmation is all but secure. The R's mansion. Well, he is no longer needed if that's the case. If Susan Collins follows through, which I don't trust her, but if Susan Collins follows through, then his vote is not necessary. Being the first GOP senator to do so after reviewing Judge Ketanji Brown Jackson's extensive record, watching much of her hearing testimony, and meeting with her twice in person, I have concluded that she possesses the experience, qualifications, and integrity to serve as an associate justice on the Supreme Court. Interesting. Yeah, Manchin's definitely a yes vote too. Agreed. But if that's the case, if all Dems follow, if all Dems vote yes, then her vote is also unnecessary at that point. But I also love the continued framing. There's nothing moderate about this guy. Yeah, I don't either, Ecoresto. But nonetheless, interesting update on what's going on with that. It seems like her nomination is all but secure. Right, this is also the same person that said Trump learned his lesson in the impeachment. Right. That's a good meme. I need to print this out and make this like a frame. All right, folks. We do need to continue our journey through the IPCC Working Group 2 report. Only for her support of Alz and caretaker. Oh, is that Alzheimer's and caretaker legislation? Do I respect her at all, to be honest? Good stream, dude. Thank you. I appreciate that. So we're here, page 39 of the summary of the IPCC report. If you guys want the full report, there's a link to that. The full technical summary, there's a link to that. We are currently on page 39, entering page 40 over here. Arctic communities and indigenous peoples face risk to economic activities. Very high confidence as direct and cascading impacts of climate change continue to occur at a magnitude industry and much faster than projected for other regions. Right. So as more information comes in, the worse we see things. Basically, very high confidence. Impacts and risks include reduced access to and productivity of future fisheries, regional and global food and nutritional security, high confidence, local livelihoods, health and well-being, high confidence, and loss to socio-cultural assets, including heritage sites in all Arctic regions, very high confidence. Again, just the small, the little things in life. The little things in life like global food and nutritional security, local livelihoods, health, well-being, small things. Indigenous people, traditional communities, smallholder farmers, urban poor, children, and elderly in Amazonia are burdened by cascading impacts and risks from the compound effect of climate and land use change on forest fires in the region. High confidence. Deforestation, fires, and urbanization have increased the exposure of indigenous peoples to respiratory problems, yes, as wildfires tend to do. Air pollution and disease, high confidence. Amazonian forest fires are transboundary and increases systemic losses of wild crops, infrastructure, and livelihoods and require a landscape governance approach. Medium evidence, high agreement. Population groups in most vulnerable and exposed regions population groups in most vulnerable and exposed regions to compound and cascading risk have the most urgent need for improved adaptive capacity, high confidence. Regions characterized by compound challenges of high levels of poverty, a significant number of people without access to basic services such as water, sanitation, and wealth and gender inequalities, as well as governance challenges, are among the most vulnerable regions are particularly located in East Central and West Africa, South Asia, Micronesia, Melanesia, and Central America. High confidence. Yep. Specifically Central America, I am very familiar with, and that is true. Emergent risks arise from responses to climate change include maladaptation and unintended side effects of mitigation, including the cases of afforestation and hydropower, very high confidence. Solar radiation modification, or SRM, approaches attempt to offset warming and ameliorate some climate risk, but introduce a new range A range of new risks to people and ecosystems which are not well understood. High confidence. More evidence now supports the 5 major reasons of concern about climate change, describing risks associated with unique and threatened systems, extreme weather events, that's 2, distribution of impacts, 3, global aggregate impacts, and large-scale singular events. High confidence. Compared to AR5, the previous report, and SR15, risks increase to high to very high levels at lower global risks increase to high and very high levels at lower global warming levels for all 5 RFCs. High confidence and transition ranges are assigned with greater confidence. Transitions from high to very high risk emerge in all 5 RFCs compared to just 2 RFCs in AR5. High confidence. As in previous assessments, levels of concern at a given level of warming remain higher for RFC 1 than for other RFCs. RFC 1 being extreme weather events. Limiting global warming to 1.5 degrees would ensure risk levels remain moderate for RFC 3, RFC 4, and RFC 5, but risk for RFC 2 would have transitioned to a high risk at 1.5, and RFC 1 would be well into the transition to very high risk. Yikes, high confidence. Remaining below 2 degrees warming, but above 1.5 degrees Celsius would imply that risk for RFC through 5 would be transitioning to high, and risk for 1 to 2, RFC 1 and 2 would be transitioning to very high, and this is with high confidence. By 2.5 degrees warming, RFC will be in very high risk, and all other RFCs will have begun their transition to very high risk. Medium confidence for RFC 2 and 3, low confidence RFC 4 and 5. Yikes. And, low confidence for RFC 4 and 5. And this is a table referenced. Of each of the implicated risks here. Or reasons for concern, I should say. While the RFC represents global risk levels for aggregate concerns about dangerous anthropogenic interference with the climate system, they represent a great diversity of risks, and in reality, there is not one single dangerous climate threshold across sectors and regions. RFCs 1, 2, and 5 include risks that are irreversible, such as species extinction, coral reef degradation, loss of cultural heritage, or loss of small islands due to sea level rise. Once such risk materializes, the impacts would persist even if global temperatures would subsequently decline to levels associated with lower levels of risk in an overshooting scenario. For example, where temperatures increase over well below 2 degrees Celsius above pre-industrial for multi-decadal time spans before decreasing. So yeah, like, the whole point is to move in the direction of cutting emissions as much as possible. What are we talking about? The IPCC report, Working Group 2, Technical Summary. That link should be the PDF. We are currently in the bottom, I would say, of page 42. If you want to read that on your own, you can. That is the link. Warming pathways which imply a temporary temperature increase from over well below 2 degrees Celsius before pre-industrial for multi-decadal time spans imply severe risks and irreversible impacts in many natural and human systems. Example, glacier melts, loss of coral reefs, loss of human lives due to heat, even if the temperature goals are reached later. Projected warming pathways may entail exceeding 1.5 or 2 degrees around mid-century. Jesus. Even if the Paris temperature goal is still reached by 2100, this overshoot entails severe risk and irreversible impacts to many natural and human systems. As we advised, glacier melt, loss of coral reefs, loss of human lives to heat, high confidence. Overshoot substantially increases risks of carbon stored in the biosphere being released into the atmosphere due to increase in processes such as wildfires, tree mortality, insect pests, outbreaks, peatland drying, and permafrost thaw. High confidence. These phenomena exacerbate self-reinforcement feedbacks between emissions from high-carbon ecosystems that are currently store about 3,030 to 4,090 approximately gigatons of carbon, and increased global temperatures. Complex interactions of climate change, land use change, carbon dioxide fluxes, and vegetation changes combined with insect outbreaks and other disturbances will regulate the future carbon balance of this biosphere. Processes incompletely represented in current Earth system models, the exact timing and magnitude of climate biosphere feedbacks and potential tipping points of carbon loss are characterized by large uncertainty, but studies of feedbacks indicate increased ecosystem carbon losses can cause large future temperature increases. Medium confidence. Jesus. Extinction of species is an irreversible impact of climate change, the risk of which increases steeply with rise in global temperature. High confidence. Even the lowest estimates of species extinctions, 9% loss, are 100 times natural background rates. Holy yikes. 1,000 times natural background rates. Projected species extinctions at future future global warming levels are consistent with projections from AR4, which is the previous one, but assessed on many more species with greater geographic coverage and a broader range of climate models, giving higher confidence. Solar radiation modification, or SRM, approaches have potential to offset warming and ameliorate other climate hazards, but their potential to reduce risk or introduce novel risks to people and ecosystems is not well understood. High confidence. Solar radiation modification effects on climate hazards are highly dependent on deployment scenarios, and substantial residual climate change or overcompensating change would occur at regional scales and seasonal timescales. High confidence. Due to in part to limited research, there is low confidence in projected benefits or risks to crop yields, economies, human health, or ecosystems. Large negative impacts are projected from rapid warming up for a sudden and sustained termination of SRM in high CO2 scenarios. SRM would not stop CO2 from increasing in the atmosphere or reduce resulting ocean acidification under continued anthropogenic emissions. High confidence. There's high agreement in the literature for addressing climate change risks. Addressing climate change risks, SRM is at best a supplement to achieve sustained net zero or net negative CO2 emission levels globally. Co-evolution of SRM governance and research provides a chance of responsibly deploying SRM technologies with broader public participation and political legitimacy, guarding against potential risks and harms relevant across a full range of scenarios. And this is the figure that it was referencing above. This one should really worry people, yeah? This one should really be ringing some alarm bells, that's for sure. Wait, is the rest of this all the graphs that that were put together from the parts that we were reading? Because all of this we went through. The parts of showing aspects of vulnerability, such as extreme poverty, inequality, access to healthcare, basic infrastructures. Yeah, all of this we went through, for sure. I think these are all the graphs depicting all the information we went over in for visuals, you know? Is all this... Oh, here we are. Oh. Okay. Oh, okay, so this... Okay, so that was the end of that section. This is another one. Here we go. Another section. Okay. Contribution to adaptation to solutions. This section covers the climate change adaptation and explains how our knowledge of it has progressed since AR5. This section begins with an explanation of the overall progress on adaptation and the adaptation gaps, and then discusses limits to adaptation. Maladaptation and the underlying evidence base are explained together with the strategies available to strengthen the biosphere that can help our ecosystem function in a changing climate. Different adaptation options across food, water, nutrition, and ecosystem-based adaptation and other nature-based solutions are also discussed, and the ways urban systems and infrastructure in particular are coping with adaptation. Adaptation to sea level rise is specifically discussed given its global impact on coastal areas, while health, well-being, migration, and conflict are also explained as these warrant additional important considerations. True. Justice and equity have a significant impact as well as how effective adaptation can be, and are discussed as key issues that relate to decision-making, to the decision-making process on adaptation and range of enablers that can support said adaptation. Lastly, the focus shifts to system transitions and transformational adaptation that are needed to move climate change adaptation forward in a rapidly warming world. That's a bit of a mouthful. Increasing adaptation is being observed in natural and human systems, very high confidence, yet the majority of climate risk management and adaptation currently being planned and implemented is incremental. In other words, what it sounds like to me is insufficient. There are gaps between current adaptation and adaptation needed for avoiding the increases of climate impacts that can be observed across sectors and regions, especially under medium and high warming levels. Yeah, so insufficient is the word. Responses have accelerated in both developed and developing regions since AR5, with some examples of regression. Yikes. Growing adaptation knowledge in public and private sectors, increasing number of policy and legal frameworks, and dedicated spending on adaptation are all clear indications that the availability of response options has expanded. High confidence, however, observed adaptation in human systems across all sectors and regions is dominated by small incremental reactive change to usual practices, often after extreme weather events. Jesus, while evidence of transformative adaptation in human systems is limited, even after extreme weather events, whilst evidence of transformative adaptation in human systems is limited. High confidence. Droughts, pluvial, and coastal flooding are the most common hazards for which adaptation is being implemented, and many of these have physical, affordability, and social limits. High confidence. There's some evidence of global vulnerability reductions, particularly for flood risk and extreme heat. Yep. There's only so much. There's only so much. Massively insufficient. That's right. Current adaptation in natural and managed ecosystems include earlier planting and change in crop varieties, soil improvement and water management for livestock and crops, aquaculture, restoration of coastal and hydrological processes, introduction of heat and drought-adapted genotypes into high-risk populations. What? Increasing size and connectivity of habitat patches, agroecological farming, agroforestry, and managed relocations of high-risk species, medium confidence. These measures can increase resilience, productivity, and sustainability of both natural and food systems under climate change, high confidence. Financial barriers limit implementation and adaptation options in natural ecosystems. Agriculture, fisheries, aquaculture, and forestry as finance strategies are stochastically deployed. Investment in climate service provisions has benefited the agriculture sector in many regions with limited uptake of climate service information and decision-making frameworks, medium confidence. The ambition, scope, and progress on adaptation may have risen amongst governments at the local, national, and international levels, along with businesses, communities, and civil society, but many funding, knowledge, and practice gaps remain for effective implementation, monitoring, and evaluation. High confidence. I don't know about that one, Chief. It looks like to me, yeah, we have a better understanding, and the information is there. Especially with the ability to articulate some of the talking points. Like we saw in COP26. So the information is there. However, as it says, the implementation and funding is yet to be seen on a massive scale, on a scale sufficient enough to begin to move in the right direction. There are large gaps in risk management and risk transfer in low-income contexts, and even larger gaps in conflict-affected contexts, high confidence. Adaptive capacity is highly uneven across and within regions, high confidence. Current adaptation efforts are not expected to meet existing goals, high confidence. Jesus. Many cities and settlements have developed adaptation plans since AR5, but a limited number of these have been implemented so that urban adaptation gaps exist in all world regions for all hazard types, high confidence. Many plans focus on climate risk reduction, missing opportunities to advance co-benefits of climate mitigation and sustainable development, and risking compounding inequality and reduced well-being, medium confidence. Greatest adaptation gaps exist in projects that manage complex risks, for example, in the food, energy, water, health nexus, or the interrelationships of air quality and climate risks. Jeez. High confidence. Most innovation and adaptation has occurred through advances in socio-ecological infrastructures, including disaster risk management, social safety nets, and green-blue infrastructure, medium confidence. However, most financial investment continues to be directed narrowly at large-scale, hard engineering projects after climate events have caused them, medium confidence. All right, folks, we're almost there. We're almost there, so we're gonna take a pause here. Page 56. Folks, unfortunately, that is all the time I have today. Thank you guys so much for hanging out here. Thank you for all the support that you guys have given. Thank you for the follows. Thank you for the subscriptions. Hannah Hamather with a tier 1 subscription coming in at the beginning of the stream. Coming in hot, starting us off. Cheeseburger Freedom Eagle, thank you so much for the subscription. Casual callouts, thank you for the 100 biddies. I appreciate all the support you guys have given. You guys are what makes this channel grow. As always, folks, before we head out, good time. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. Please make sure you hit the follow button if you haven't already. It does help us out. And you get 5 free emotes. If you're on the YouTubes, consider subscribing or just head on over. Head on over and just click the red subscribe button. It really does help us out. There we go. And join the Discord if you guys haven't already. Thanks for the stream. Thank you for hanging out, Cornbread. Appreciate that. Join the Discord to keep up with the channel in case there's any updates. And don't forget to check out our sponsor and support the channel. ! HelloFresh. Check that out. Does help us out. All your support is what makes this go. I appreciate you guys. Please stay safe. Please take care of each other. I love you all, and I hope to see you guys in the next one. See ya. Thanks for having us along today. Thank you for hanging out. Hang tight, folks. All right, folks. We're heading out in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. See ya.